Okay, I will call this meeting of the Patton Township Planning Commission to order. Does anyone have anything to add to the posted meeting agenda?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion to make on the minutes from our last meeting, which was February 5th, 2024?
I move to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye to approve the minutes from the February 5th, 2024 meeting.
Aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Okay, the minutes have been approved. We'll now go to item 3, which is public comment. Does anyone have anything to comment that is not on the meeting agenda? Seeing no one present, on Zoom, we will move to item 4, which is adding members to the Planning Commission as an alternate. We discussed this idea prior at a meeting 2 months ago, and the MPC code allows for 3 alternate members. Each alternate serves 4-year term. They can participate in all of our meeting discussions, but are only allowed to vote if the chair of the Planning Commission says that they can as a voting delegate due to the absence of a full regular member. So, do we need to just discuss that we want to move forward with this?
Yeah.
To have this as a policy?
Yeah, so if you want to move forward with this, the supervisors actually have to amend the planning commission ordinance to provide for alternates. And then they have to, according to the MPC, I think they have to pass a resolution designating the alternates. We had these in Harris Township, and it was great because then if we had an unexpected absence or someone leave during their term on the planning commission, we had someone ready to step up and fill the position. And also, as you guys know, when you come on the planning commission can be a pretty daunting committee to get on because there's a lot of moving parts and things to learn. And being an alternate and being able to participate in discussions and listen is a great way to kind of get yourself acclimated to the work of the planning commission.
Well, and I think personally, it would be like you're doing like an internship, quote unquote, to try to get up to speed on the types of things that we do and the processes. Anyone else have comments?
I agree. If one of us gets sick or in the hospital or surgery or anything, I think that would be a great alternative to step right in.
Right. Jim?
Only thoughts I had is on the alternates as far as voting. If an alternate is requested to vote, then if that same item comes back up again, the alternate would have to sit in on it, and whoever they replace momentarily
Right.
wouldn't vote on it.
Right, and that's why there's a designation process by the chair. So if there's a plan that comes up and say Bill is absent and Rich says, okay, say Brian's our alternate, okay, Brian, you're gonna be the voting delegate for Bill for this, and if it is, tabled to the next month, then that still carries over to the next month.
Okay.
The only other thing was that, as long as 4 out of 7 is a quorum,
Yeah.
that's, I say we keep with that status. But the alternates would be able to discuss things and give their 2 cents worth.
Right, and I think we'll also have to look into this, but I think also if we know that we're not gonna have 4 regular members of the planning commission able to attend, but we know one of the alternates can attend, they can then be designated as the delegate for that meeting, so then we still could have the meeting if we needed to.
Right.
Not that I don't think we have trouble getting people to come to our meetings, I don't think we've had quorum issues in the past, but.
No. Okay, Brian or Sharon, any other comments on this item?
Well, I don't think we've ever had a problem having a quorum on planning commission show up for a meeting in any of the years I've been here.
CRPC did, but we haven't.
Yeah, we haven't. So I don't know. Because we have, how many of us are there? There's like 7 or 8 of us? 7? And we've always been able to have 4. I just don't know if it's really necessary, even if somebody did move or, have to be hospitalized or something, I think we would still pretty much, especially with Zoom as an alternative, to show up for a meeting.
Well, I think alternates are good ideas, if nothing else, for the future training.
That's not a bad point. That's definitely a good point.
But at the same time, it's up to the alternates to show up and participate.
Yeah, we had one person in Harris who was an alternate who we never saw, and so when that person's term ended, we didn't reappoint them. But the other alternates all did step up, and they came to the meetings and participated. And then at the end of someone's term, if someone didn't want to be reappointed from the Planning Commission, we'd recommend the alternate for the appointment, because they were already, kind of coached up on what was going on. It's a good way to build a bench. We don't really talk about building a bench in local government, but we sort of need to, because these are all volunteer positions. And, with Brian's a perfect example. Brian's a great member of the Planning Commission, but he's had a change in his work schedule, which makes it
Yep.
hard for him to get here. So we don't want to lose Brian's contribution.
Right.
That's true.
Okay, anything else, Brian, that you'd like to say, or anyone else would like to say anything? Because I guess we have to make a motion to move it on to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm good, thanks.
okay.
I make a motion to advance it to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor to move to the Board of Supervisors to add a alternate member to the Planning Commission, please say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. We will move that forward to the Board of Supervisors.
Yep.
Okay, next thing is, we have 2024 work session plan task, and we discussed this last at our July 2023 meeting. So out of our long-term top highest priority, 83.3% was housing, affordable, attainable housing. And then for the long-term, second priority was the planned airport district. And then if we go down the list, short-term highest priority, 50% was the commercial zoning districts. And then the second priority was the sign ordinance. So we need to pick and prioritize what we want to do moving forward for work sessions for this year.
Yeah, and we suggested, because the planned airport district, the biggest property that's out there right now, we're getting ready to probably see a plan submission for that. We have the sketch plan. So that's probably not something you need to focus your time on right now. So we put some additional items that we do think you need to focus your time on in the agenda. One of them being a review of our streets ordinance and our right-of-way regulations. That's something when, people come in and they need to put in a new street in development, we need to make sure they're following our standards. I know Ken has some thoughts on that, as well as our engineer. Reviewing our sign ordinance, which is out of compliance with a Supreme Court case. And so we actually have, the ordinance has been marked up by the solicitor, so that's probably a little further along. And then this item, the supervisors will discuss putting this on their work plan Wednesday night, which is to work on workforce housing regulations for the township. I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past. And College Township and State College both have ordinances in place. Center County Housing and Land Trust is willing to come in and work with us. That would be something you would do jointly with the Board of Supervisors. And then lastly, the tree requirements. The Center Region Public Works Directors have been meeting with local arborists and local landscape companies to work on this item. The idea being that we all have tree requirements in our ordinances, and we all have the same climate, and we're all in the same region, and it would be great if we had one regional species list and we have very similar regulations, if not the same regulations, across the board. Because right now, not everybody has the same tree regulations, and some of our trees are very outdated that are in our ordinances, so this would be able to update that. And then lastly, we'd like to do some education, working with Center Region Planning Agency, if we can, on the land development process, sewage planning, the role of the comprehensive plan, traffic impact studies, that kind of thing, as we have time.
Okay. My only comment is, 2, came up at our last meeting, the sign ordinance. That was it. With the one agenda item, that came up at our last meeting, so that was my only comment. Anyone else have thoughts? Well, Ken, do you want to make a comment on item 1 on the street ordinance?
The largest issue that the township has is, right now, we don't have regulations requiring how a repair has to be made if you actually open cut a street to install a utility or repair a utility. It's becoming more of an issue as it's more difficult for individuals to either directionally bore or whole hog, cables and lines, because there's more under the roads, under the streets and so forth. And so they really don't have the ability to do that. We also have some older failing infrastructure through the power company and through cable and phone network and so forth that they have strung about the area, but it's difficult for them to replace those sometimes. And without having requirements for them how to repair the road whenever they're done, sometimes we'll wind up with something that we feel is substandard and compromises the life of the roadway. So we want to put that burden back onto the individuals and have them pay for making sure that road, if it was just paved within the last 10 years, we want to see it last another 15 years or more. And if somebody doesn't do a proper repair to it, it'll actually shorten the life of the roadway.
Okay. So in terms of all of these things listed, and I think we discussed this last year too, that seems like the most pressing that we could help you all out in trying to rectify to get things more consistent and to not shortchange our efforts to pay for a road getting paved, then something after getting dug up, then them not repairing it to the same number of years that you were anticipating at the last when we paid money to have it paved.
Correct.
Okay.
So would an example of this be North Oak Lane?
Actually, North Oak Lane we're working with the utilities, and that's the one thing, we do have a very good rapport with State College Borough Water Authority and University Area Joint Authority. They looked at what our paving schedules were going to be, and that's why they've actually scheduled that work. The Borough Water Authority is replacing the entire main water line from Galen Drive to Park Forest on North Oak Lane. So they're going to start at Galen and work down to Douglas, because that's the piece of North Oak that the township will be overlaying this year and rebuilding. Right in front of your house, Rich.
Oh, I know.
Sorry, Rich.
I'm happy it's done.
Next year, we're proposing to go from Douglas to Westgate, and then from Westgate to Park Forest Avenue. The Water Authority is actually going to be repairing it in a different fashion than they are in those two sections.
And when it comes to this ordinance in North Oak Lane, what it would do is it would put a cap on when you can dig up a newly paved street, right? That's not something you want to have happen, because we just opened the bids for North Oak Lane. It's going to be over $200,000 to pave that first section. We don't want someone coming in next year after we've paved it and said, oh, we've got to dig it up.
Right.
So this will have regulations in it pertaining to that, so that they can't dig up the
Welcome to
road.
California, where I grew up.
So would this be an issue with all the new development, like in Toftree, when we're adding new places?
So we would want to update our street standards as part of the streets ordinance and look at that. And I know we've had heated debates about curbing for whatever reason in this office, about rolled curb versus extruded curb. So yes, this would come into play with new developments as well.
Okay.
And when we're saying, reviewing the ordinance and updating it, it would happen at a staff level, and then we would present it to the planning commission, and we can do it sort of in chunks, so it's not the whole entire thing at once, but then you would give your blessing to it, and it would move on to the supervisors. We're not saying that Jim's gonna sit and write the section on utility cuts, or, Rich is gonna take care of the right-of-way regulations. We'll bring it to you in pieces.
Okay.
And it, as Amy was saying, if something does happen, it's not going to be 100% prohibition to somebody open cutting the road. If somebody needed an open cut of road that we just paved last year. The problem or the issue, what it's going to boil down to is the patch that they put on the road. It's not going to be 4 foot wide. It'll probably be 20 feet long, and it'll be across the entire width of the road if the road's just been paved within the last 5 years. It's going to be a sizable patch so that it encourages them to explore every alternative to not tearing the road up.
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, go
Is-
ahead.
Do we have a way of letting all of the other utilities, like the cable and the telephone and everything else, when we make decisions about roads that are being torn up and they're on the calendar, do we have a way of letting them know this is their time to make any improvements if they want to make improvements?
The townships and a lot of the utilities, we usually meet once a year and everybody presents their snapshot of the next 3 to 5 years of what the intent is to attempt to upgrade, repair, or overlay. At that point in time, I know, as I said, the Borough Water Authority and UAJA, they work very closely with the municipalities on that. The gas company as well, they do track that fairly well. Cable and phone, not quite as much.
Do we have, are they just not invited to the planning, to the meeting, or do they just, they're just not they don't think as far ahead?
Yeah, representatives are invited to that utility meeting every year.
Okay. And then another question I have is, so when you're talking about the types of street cuts allowed, it requires posting of bonds and sureties for this work. So are we requiring them to use like the same, whoever we have lay the asphalt, and they just pay the bill?
No.
So that we know that the quality is going to be there so if we pay to have something paid, and we think, okay, that's got a 12-year life or a 15-year life or, whatever that is. And then somebody goes in, cuts the road open and then patches it. We need to make sure that the quality is the same so that the life of that road is not challenged.
Right, so that's
ahead of
where it
schedule.
comes down to, in the ordinance itself, it would specify how much wearing course you have to put down, the size of the cut that it has to be, and then what kind of bonding or surety you would have to post to the township after you do it. You have to guarantee the work in case there's an issue.
Okay, that's what that means. Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying.
Yep. Any other questions? So, we need to make like a motion of how we want to prioritize these, or can we just tell you what we want to prioritize for work tasks?
Yeah, you can just tell us if you want what you want to prioritize, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, first question is, street ordinance or sign ordinance, which one can get done the quickest?
Probably the sign ordinance, it's already marked up.
Okay.
So I'd say put that one,
Okay.
get
Yeah.
rid of it.
Yeah, that was my thought too, because of what we discussed at the last meeting, and I think there's other businesses that might be taking a look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we all comfortable with sign 1 and the street ordinances 2?
Yep.
Sharon, Brian?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, now 3, you said, if I'm not mistaken, that there's other entities that are working through that.
This would be a joint process with
Okay.
the Planning Commission, the supervisors, and then the Center County Housing and Land Trust is interested
Okay.
in working with us. I would make that, it's kind of like 2A is the streets ordinance, 2B is probably your workforce housing.
Okay.
call it number 3, but it's probably the
Okay,
same level.
even though it takes a little more coordination to actually set up a formalized,
Yeah,
meeting.
what we'll probably do is try to have a work session to kind of kick things off. But like I said, College Township has a great ordinance that's in play now, and they've done some incredible workforce housing over there. And the borough has an ordinance as well that gets used. So it's kind of looking at and seeing if we can adapt some of those regulations to meet what we want to accomplish out here.
okay.
Was there somebody at CRPC last year, I recall, kind of towards maybe it was in the fall, one of the fall meetings? I thought she was from Ferguson Township, but maybe she was from College Township. But they had put in a lot of things with attainable workforce,
Yeah.
and
That was Ferguson Township, they didn't pass their ordinance.
oh, they didn't pass their ordinance. Because I knew that they had some difficult lessons that they learned early on, and they sort of had figured out a way to make it work. It sounded like she had a lot of background. I just wanted to know if we should invite her to the meeting too.
Well, she
Or-
was their planning director at the time. She's since moved out of the area. So if she comes back, yes. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And looking at the list as well, the tree requirements, hopefully it'll be something that'll be similar to the sign ordinance whenever it's put together and finished. It should be something that should be very easily completed.
Pass through.
Okay. So I think it makes sense to put that as the next item, ordinance.
No, I would not.
Oh, you would not?
I would put the workforce housing as the next item.
Oh, no, that was what I meant.
Put it as number 3, yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, so, yeah, no. Yeah, no, I meant workforce housing as 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, because I think workhouse, that's going to take a long time to figure it out. So I think we need to get started on that fairly early.
I agree. You know, we've been discussing this for a few years.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to hear out of the supervisors, I sent them a survey of their possible pending work items, and a few of them identified the workforce housing regulations as the highest priority for this year. So I think what you're going to hear is they want to
Yeah.
get moving on this.
Right.
Good.
And plus, I just saw in the news, I think the county got some money recently. I thought I saw this on statecollege.com, but I don't know who got it, so I don't think it was us. So then I guess the only other thing is things for us to pursue for more education.
Right, and that doesn't need to be, a prioritized thing. That's just something we'd like to provide to you as we have time on our agendas.
Okay. All right, so are we all set? So we're all set with that. And I think that's a nice list, and we look forward to making progress. And I guess if
I had a quick
needed-
question.
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
have a
Sharon.
question on the tree requirements. So we're discussing which trees, throughout the region and trying to even that out. But would that also include, like, when I drive up certain roads that still have like power lines and things like that, can we write something in so when somebody has a tree that comes down or they want to plant a tree on their property, can we do something to make sure that it's not going to be interfering with the power lines up ahead? Because somebody puts in like a 4 or 5 foot tree and they're not thinking about what's going to happen at the 16 and 17 foot level. And then it's on the township to go and do all that trimming all the time, because of things like ice storms and wind storms and
Don't the
all that sort of thing.
utilities have to do that?
Whenever we do land development review now, if there are any overhead utility lines, there is a tree list that the utility providers actually have put out that's an acceptable list of trees that can be placed under utility wires and utility lines. Most of them are mid-story or, dwarf trees, so it really cuts down on any work that they need to do.
Okay.
A lot of the trees that you see are from quite a long time ago, and unfortunately, there wasn't as much thought process put into it back years ago. So, yeah, that's something that's avoided right now even. But we do have different, tier tree height requirements. If you have, utility wires and so forth that you have to deal with.
Okay. All right, so we're all comfortable with that, it sounds like. So we can move on to 6 pending items. So the only thing that we have is we already talked about the work task that we'll be getting moving on here in the future. And then the other thing is the submission deadline for the April 1st Planning Commission meeting was March 1st. Plans for the Windswept Farm subdivision plan were received, so I guess we'll be looking at that next month. Anyone else have anything else to report? I was just going to mention about the North Oak project getting approved at the Water Authority meeting. I think it was under budget at $2.1 million.
Nice.
So,
Oh, that is nice.
yes. Anything else to discuss? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
No. I
Okay,
make the motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn.
okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.